Sasha, thank you very much indeed, and I'm delighted to be here this morning. I'm delighted, firstly, to be able to say how important I think this whole ambitious smart meter program is. It's one of the distinctive areas which allows the UK to say, in certain places, we are really trying to do things at a different scale and in a different way from other countries. I also entirely agree with what Sarah said this morning, that the smart meter program is the foundation of energy efficiency systems in any bigger system, and energy efficiency lies absolutely at the heart of any sustainable energy system. We still tend to get overexcited about supply side issues, generation, and inadequately excited about demand management and energy efficiency. But we all know in an audience like this that if you can't do that bit, honestly, we're going to have a real struggle to get the generation side right. So this is brilliant. I love to see this very much as part of what Jeremy Rifkin has described as the third industrial revolution, the coming together of a whole suite of new technologies, some energy-based around generation and storage, some more to do with systems around demand management, the whole question about smart grids and so on, and then bringing to bear on all of that some of the continuingly staggering breakthroughs in information technology, digitizing so much of this new approach to an energy system as to make the prospects extraordinarily exciting. I will come back to excitement at the end of my talk, but it will take a little while to get there through some areas that are not quite so exciting. And that's because we have been working with one of our pioneer partners, and Sasha's right, we spend a lot of time working with big companies here in the UK and globally, and one of our pioneer partners is O2 Telefonica, of course, very closely involved in this rollout of the smart meter program. And with O2 Telefonica, we have been looking for a number of years now at what you might describe as conditions for success. So what will it actually take for this smart meter program to be the resounding, utterly brilliant, world-leading success that everybody wants it to be? That's what I'm going to investigate over the next few minutes. I have 6 success criteria, as it were. First, that there should be high levels of trust between all the principal parties involved in the smart meter program and in the related opportunities that will flow from that program in all sorts of different ways: business opportunities, consumer-based opportunities, and so on. Now, frankly, this is problematic. We do not have high levels of trust here in the UK, particularly as far as consumers are concerned. Most consumers despise the energy companies on which they still depend. They usually fall pretty much off any favorability index, slightly below banks, sometimes just pipping banks, but not very often. And most consumers believe that they are systematically lied to by most of the energy companies in the UK today, obviously. Not Tempest and other small companies of that kind. A lot of people are very doubtful that the government is going to bring the kind of leadership to bear on this and don't actually trust the quality of that leadership, especially since the government decided to turn DEC into a wholly owned subsidiary of the Treasury. Second success criterion, that there should be a stable policy environment. This is fundamental to people involved in massive developments of this kind. And honestly, we're just going through as close to a policy nightmare here in the UK as I can remember over the last 40 years. We hit a new low yesterday with the Secretary of State accused of that most heinous of all crimes, misleading the House of Commons as to the likelihood of the UK achieving its EU-mandated target of 15% of our energy coming from renewables by 2020, and that has unleashed a whole set of concerns about whether we're even going to meet our own targets under the Climate Change Act and so on. As you know, the attack that has been launched on renewable energy here in the UK since the election in May has startled everybody, including those involved in the industry. And the even less comprehensible attack on energy efficiency is also considered to be completely remarkable, and actually, talking to all of our businesses, egregiously stupid. I was chair of the Sustainable Development Commission at the start of the discussion about the zero carbon agenda, zero carbon homes, zero carbon non-domestic buildings, and so on. Roughly 12 years of complex negotiated discussions with everybody involved in that area. Swept aside completely arbitrarily, with no justification given for this, and apart from a couple of whinging volume house builders, no real wish on the part of business to see the zero carbon agenda destroyed. Criterion 3, that investors should feel comfortable with the direction of travel and the degree to which they can put confidence in or have faith in the ability of government to deliver on its policy promises. What they want is transparency, consistency, and, quotes, no surprises, quotes. Well, there are not many investors who feel like that in the UK at the moment in the area of energy policy. And we met with some of them a week ago, where we were talking to them about their prospects as big investors in global energy futures. And I think all of us in Forum for the Future were completely astonished to hear that as far as they were concerned, there is now a higher level of political risk in the UK than there is in India. I'm sorry. For me, that is a pretty startling thought. And many of them are now preferring to take their investments to India. Now, the government has promised a reset. So far, through the discussions we've had with our business partners, there is very little confidence that the government can get us back onto the straight and narrow. I'm absolutely certain that Lord Bourne is going to get me back onto the straight and narrow when he tells us what the government is doing in this area, and I look forward to that. Fourthly, that there should be high levels of business confidence. Now, actually here, it's a rather better scene. Business is absolutely clear about the pressing need to move towards a low-carbon economy as fast and as cost-effectively as it can be done. Not just the big companies that we work with, like O2 and Telefonica, but in particular across the SME sector and the micro-businesses. And I think that given the micro-businesses are a critical audience, a critical participating party for the smart meter rollout, this is really very important. Again, business just slightly baffled as to what it is the government is up to in this respect. Just simply saying that mandatory carbon reporting is no longer necessary, admittedly for the big companies, makes no sense to any of these companies. Absolutely no sense to any of them whatsoever. Why? It's a small and tiny thing that will help move us towards the transparency of data in the low-carbon agenda that we need. Fifth, that consumers should feel comfortable with the proposed change. After all, they are, notionally, the principal beneficiaries of a smart meter program. We should not take that for granted. In many countries, efforts to move towards smart metering have not been a resounding success and have not been met with huge enthusiasm on the part of consumers. Indeed, in some countries, there have been effective consumer-led campaigns against the rollout of smart meters. And at the moment, I would say that consumers feel mostly confused about this. They really don't know where they are, with a government suffering from systemic cognitive dissonance, green crap on the one hand, and global leadership for a low-carbon world on the other. You work your way through that. It's quite complicated. And they feel largely abused by their energy companies. And God knows what they make of the media today, whose level of understanding about any of this stuff is so deficient as to beggar belief. Lastly, final success criterion, coming back to this notion of excitement. It has to be possible to project this whole story about the smart meter rollout, which is, after all, just a little bit geeky, sorry, Sarah, but it is just a little bit geeky, against a bigger, more compelling, really exciting backdrop. It should be possible to invite consumers and businesses to become active agents of change in what is indisputably the biggest single challenge that humankind has ever faced, transitioning from wholly unsustainable energy sources to wholly sustainable energy sources, and what should be the most exciting single transition in the history of humankind. Right now, it would be really hard to play into that context because, frankly, I don't think a lot of people believe that is the context that we're really working in. And we shouldn't be too surprised that the UK was pretty much at the bottom of the league table about people who feel that climate change is really going to affect them. For good reason, frankly, if you look back over the last 6 years. Thank you.